It's been a hot second since I uploaded. I want to thank so many folks for the support during the sudden drop-off, but nobody's in the intro for that. I gotta deliver on my title. Let's go! The Magical Girl transformation is the defining feature of the Magical Girl show. This does not mean that if the transformation is there, the show is now Maho Shoujo, nor does it mean that the show's quality hinges somehow upon the quality of its transformations. What it means is that if the core of the story does not feature the living and moving between powerful magic and everyday life, it cannot be considered Magical Girl. Full stop. A few months ago, a fellow Magical Girl enthusiast, Dore Imani, stated in a video that she feels the nature of the Magical Girl transformation is
a shedding of your skin, realizing what you're capable of, finding the strength within, and then using that to fight for what you believe in.
This description absolutely fascinated me, because, in my head, becoming a Magical Girl is a transmutation. You're made up of the same stuff, but you are not the same thing. Your molecules get all rearranged. Only after this did I think, well, obviously a concept that broad can't mean the same things in every show. These discrepancies then led me to take a more scientific approach. After much observational science, because you cannot make me experiment if you cursed me to be an arcade sticky hand, I would like to present to the board my findings about the phenomenon known as Magical Girl transformations. Magical Girl transformations, gender neutral, which I will be shortening to MGT for the sake of not having to say an 8-syllable long phrase 15 times, can be divided into various subtypes. There's I can't believe there's no transformation, shimmer, sparkle, poof, and the standard transformation. We will be exploring these throughout, however, a much more prudent way to structure our presentation is to dig into the 3 stages of any transformation: the initiation, the process, and the completion. The initiation is pretty simple. It's moon prism power, it's going ghost, it's pasta-la-pa-pa-di-pa-pi-pa. The initiation of the transformation always requires something specific from the Maho undergoing this transformation. A will to fight, crystallized into a particular action or set of actions. The transformation responds to this stimulus and comes forth for the purposes of moving into the next phase. What the transformation requires to begin can say quite a bit about the nature of the transformation, the Maho undergoing it, and/or the story as a whole. In the Pretty Cure franchise, the girls require a marketable handheld object and the calling phrase for the season. This is the nature of the standard Magical Girl transformation as codified by Sailor Moon. In most observable cases, this form of initiation is meant to further immerse the viewer with its familiarity, as well as be repeated and mimicked by said viewer. It's used most often to reinforce theming and structure. Transformations under Shimmer, Sparkle, Poof classification are by their nature much shorter than a standard transformation. They are called on and completed within seconds, and almost always without the camera ever leaving the surroundings of reality. These in particular rely on their initiations to be iconic as transformations. The aforementioned going ghost calling phrase isn't strictly necessary for our beloved ghost boy who can walk through walls, disappear, and fly to access his powers. He is always half ghost, which is precisely what makes it special within the structure of an episode. It is a statement by which the main character expresses he's officially gotten serious and is about to enter combat proper. Under this transformation subtype, a transformation's initiation acts as a signal to the audience more definitively than any other category. It is the switch that gets flipped to tell the viewer and the characters in story that we're no longer in the same stage of the plot as we previously were, and we're not exiting the next stage of the plot until we've either succeeded or failed. While a standard transformation is an event in and of itself where initiation is but a small section, and a transformation of the Shimmer, Sparkle, Poof variety acts as a signal, I can't believe there's no transformation, by its nature, is slightly more difficult to break into stages. A Magical Girl story using this subtype to give form to its magic will typically make use of a specific object the main Maho or Mahos wield. It is the activation of this object's powers that constitutes the structural point usually taken up by the more common MGT. The iconic example, of course, being Cardcaptor Sakura. She uses her staff a bit like a Dungeons & Dragons multi-tool whose primary function is the sealing of card spirits. The initiation phase is Sakura transforming its necklace form into staff form, and this initiation serves as a herald for resolution, as opposed to a first shift into outward conflict. After this, getting to go through the entire animation and claim the card becomes a definitive final say, which is a fabulous segue into a look at the process stage of an MGT. The process, of course, takes up the vast majority of a transformation's runtime. It is every step taken in a transformation until it is over, and by far the most malleable and interest-drawing of the 3 stages. Potential elements include sparkles, solid light and wind, glowing symbols, clothing portals, mystic ribbons, building music, magical constructs, interactive objects, out-of-reality backgrounds, transformation companions, and moving or unmoving platforms. The platforms and tactile set pieces are usually my favorite things to see incorporated into a transformation. There is another notable pair of elements that bear mentioning in tandem: the bodily glow versus what I have dubbed Maho scrubs. Scrubs, to be clear, in the sense of a nurse's scrubs. They warrant separation because there is an ongoing phenomena of commentary, we will call it, about MGTs where a considerable audience will be squicked out, suspicious, or just generally very loudly opinionated about transformations that involve depictions of Mahos without clothes for a time as they transform. The resolution for such objectors, pioneered by Pretty Cure, as far as my observations tell me, was the introduction of Maho scrubs. Instead of the magical girls' bodies turning into nude kaleidoscopes that clothes would appear on, as codified in Sailor Moon, or being depicted with straight nudity, using varying levels of internal detail, Maho scrubs drape them in simplistic kaleidoscopic clothing that then itself morphs into or is dispelled by their transformed clothing and accessories. Since this is a scientific exploration and not an opinion piece, I will not be commentating on this space of opposing opinions. Yes, I am aware I added commentary of my opinion last paragraph, thereby exhibiting cowardice and hypocrisy on this front. There is a silent rule that the progress stage of an MGT is unassailable and uninterruptible. It may be shortened or streamlined for time in subsequent instances, but it is always meant to go on into its full completion. Therefore, the interruption of the process is a very powerful tool that ought not be taken lightly. It is much easier and smoother to do twists and interruptions for the process of a transformation when it's of the I can't believe there's no transformation variant incorporating wieldable objects. However, if a Maho is transforming bodily, as is ubiquitous amongst the standard and shimmer sparkle poof variants, the transformation being interrupted is practically sacrilege. Interruption of the process feels so wrong in these other transformation variations for two reasons. One is the expectations of the genre, of course, because much like you expect at least one jump scare or jump scare adjacent thing in a horror film, you expect a full transformation in a magical girl story. Two, however, is to do with the transformation's completion. The completion stage is best described as the full top-down view of the results of the transformation. While transformations as an overarching concept can mean many different things, the fundamental nature of a magical girl transformation is to be an additive process. This is why it's so horrifying in Madoka Magica when the girls find out their final fate is to be transformed once more into witches. While there is technically a net gain of power from metamorphosing into a reality-warping creature, it takes away the girls' ability to transform back into themselves. It is a horrific Faustian twist upon this naturally additive phenomena. A magical girl transformation cannot be done halfway. You may have many little transformations, or evolving transformations, but when your transformation is an MGT, it must see full completion, or else we are arrested by the unfinished. An interruption to the initiation is a false alarm, but an interruption to the process, keeping it from its completion, denies power and agency to the Maho undergoing the transformation. It is a restriction not meant to be. Now, while completion is integral, it is also the most straightforward of the stages, and does not need much elaboration. Potential elements of the completion include distinctive poses, musical hooks or taglines, particle effects bursting from the focal points, detailed fantastical backgrounds, group shots in the case of teams, and even title cards. The most of these elements are commonly present in a standard transformation, and the least amount in I Can't Believe There's No Transformation. I would now like to circle back to my original onus for this exploration and breakdown of the magical girl transformation, Dore Imani's philosophy of their artistic meaning, and my own conclusions made in response. Her reading implies a state of Maho shoujouri that relies upon the direct self-actualization of a Maho, which is indeed a deeply integral element of the genre as a whole. Self-actualization, community, and romance are some of the core motivic tenets of the subgenre. I, however, felt that this missed the mark for why MGTs appealed to me. I described the magical girl transformation as a transmutation because the state of Maho shoujuri, as I see it, has more to do with responsibility and evolution than it does with self-actualization. This view emphasizes the community part of those aforementioned core motivic tenets, which Makes me sound like a teacher's pet by comparison because responsibility isn't exciting or cool and evolution is slow and stuff, but like, love isn't always exciting and colorful. That's what makes it powerful in the first place. It can exist in more states than can be summarized concisely, and that's also what makes magical girl stories so cool, because they are the living and moving between the colorful excitement of powerful magic and the quiet caring and slow maintenance of everyday life. I would like to leave this breakdown with a prompt to meditate upon. If the clothes make the man, what does it say about you when your clothes represent your source of power? Y'all remember that thing I put on the shelf at the top of the video? The one about how nice it is that people still find and support my stuff even when I'm not doing it on a weekly period? Yeah! I got 3 people to thank for chucking money at my Ko-Fi page this video. Thank you so much too, Raptor77, once again, both for this month and for last month. Random NPC Tartaglia Simp Extraordinaire, and Your Highness, thank you, Dad, for your respective donations and lovely messages, some even in the double digits. Amazing! Spectacular! Thank you to Dore Imani for being a general inspiration whose videos are fun and nice, and thank you all for coming by, most of whom probably have not seen something I've made before, because something only 20% of my viewers are subscribed. I won't ask you to even out that number, but I will ask you to check my back catalog and leave comments, because those are essentially all of my fuel. Come to think of it, you should leave more comments on fanfictions you like. That's my final request. Go enjoy your life. Bye.